This is the Wide Format Impressions broadcast.
Welcome back to the broadcast. I'm Dan Marks. Sustainability has become a part of doing business, and whether efforts to become more sustainable are kicked off by environmental commitments, continuous improvement efforts, or more recently, mandates, those companies undertaking efforts see benefits. To provide a view of sustainability approaches for the wide format segment, I'm happy to welcome Sarah Osorio, EHS Affairs Coordinator with Printing United Alliance. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. From the standpoint of the printing industry, what in general terms qualifies a business as being sustainable? How do you define the term for PSPs looking to consider that goal?
Yeah, I think sometimes when people think of sustainability or print businesses think of sustainability, they think of it as reaching this fixed endpoint where you can call yourself sustainable and I'm a sustainable company. But in reality, I think a sustainable company is more one that's committed to incremental, continuous improvement. So sustainability is not some destination that you're trying to reach. Sustainability is actually more about that journey because, for example, net zero or reaching, net zero carbon emissions, that's a goal that everybody has and it's a great goal. But when you reach net zero, the next step after that is being carbon negative. So
Sure.
sustainability is always about, continuously improving. What does that look like for printing? That looks like reducing material waste, energy, water usage, choosing lower impact materials like inks and substrates. I think a big one we're seeing now is designing for recyclability or reusability.
Mhm.
It should not be an afterthought. Sustainability should be embedded from the beginning into every decision. A big thing that I like to harp on is metrics and creating a safe, healthy workplace because sustainability is not just about the environment. It's also about people and it's also
Mhm.
about profit, that triple bottom line. So
Sure.
sustainability is all encompassing, I think.
Now, looking specifically at the wide format segment, this is for wide format impressions. How do you think approaches to or the challenges of seeking sustainability are different than, for instance, a commercial printer or a package printer?
Yeah. There's definitely going to be a lot of differences, and we don't have enough time to cover all of them. So I think the two big ones for wide format versus commercial and packaging are going to be substrates and the end of life management of those substrates and run length. Focusing on the first one for substrates and end of life.
Mhm.
In wide format printers tend to print on a lot of different substrates. Not that there's not a lot of substrates in packaging and commercial printing, but those printers tend to focus on a couple substrates at a time.
Sure.
But in wide format, you have vinyl, you have PVC, foam board, acrylic, even corrugated. So there's a lot of different substrates for which you have to find end of life streams. And that end of life tends to be pretty complicated for some of those substrates, PVC being a big one that people talk about, finding recyclable uh, solutions for PVC can be tough.
Mhm.
Uh, I know we're talking about differences, but one similarity that I think wide format printers have with flexible packaging printers is that some of the substrates that they're printing on are multi-layered. And having those multiple layers can be very difficult to separate and therefore difficult to recycle mechanically. And the recycling infrastructure for rigid plastic is just not as robust as I would say for maybe like aluminum, some other types of packaging plastics like bottles, and of course, fiber and paper. The recyclable infrastructure there is huge. There are some opportunities though. There's a lot of growth in trying to improve or trying to adopt PVC free materials and having more recyclable substrates. Because PVC is very durable, but not easily recyclable. And we
Mhm.
are seeing shifts more to like polyethylene, which is very rigid and still very durable, but there's more recycling infrastructure for that there. Other opportunities that I've been reading a lot about are potential take back programs for some of these substrates. Highlighting modular design is a big one. And then the other difference that I talked about, run length. So when you talk about commercial and packaging, they have these huge runs usually with a lot of output, but there's a lot of make ready waste. There's a lot of waste at the end of the run. That is a huge advantage to wide format. You print on demand, you print a short run, and because it's usually digital printing, not always, but usually,
Mhm.
um, there's not as much waste associated with that process.
Okay. Branching off of that, to what degree do you think the amount of custom work done, and there's a lot of work done in the wide format space that is if you want to call it a run length, it's a run length of one.
Sure.
If you're doing a specific sign or a specific display. So, how does that serve to be a challenge to sort of standardizing the inputs of production and then also considering the outputs from that production?
When you think about customization and standardization, these are like antonym words. They kind of contradict each other. And in wide format, like you said, it's a run of one. Every venue, every wall, every retail space is going to be usually completely different. But that being said, sustainability doesn't require eliminating customization. It requires standardizing what's behind the customization. So you don't have to customize the end product, but you don't have to standardize the end product, but you can standardize a sustainable substrates list. You can standardize finishing methods that will reduce waste. You can, like I mentioned in the last question, you can highlight modular designs that can be reused and rebuilt instead of changing over every single time. And I will probably say this a million times during this podcast, but metrics are going to enable benchmarking. You cannot improve what you don't measure.
Mhm.
So, starting with that standard baseline of, okay, this is where we're starting, this is what we're trying to improve, is going to be huge because at the end of the day, the key is building a standardized sustainability framework that's going to support that custom creative output that wide format serves.
Now, also in the wide format segment, there are quite a few projects being done, and we can use the example of a huge sporting event like the Super Bowl or the NCAA Final Four that use an absolutely massive amount of material and are used, in the case of the Super Bowl, for a relatively short time.
Mhm.
Its sort of target time for display is probably a few days centered around that game. So, given the inherent use of the resources needed to produce something like that for such a short time, how could these projects be sustainable to you?
Yeah. So I think in this case, and I know we're talking about wide format, but this is very similar to like packaging because packaging is used once and kind of discarded.
Mhm.
So in these instances, I think sustainability needs to be viewed from the lens more of impact mitigation rather than impact elimination. So there's a lot of different approaches that can be considered to mitigate that environmental impact of these materials that are going to be used once or a few times and then be discarded. So again, designing structures for reuse, but beyond that, using materials that are easy to recycle, easy to repurpose. They don't have to be recycled into, another sign, but I've been seeing some articles of take back programs for wide format products that are being turned into traffic cones
Mm.
or benches. So there are ways to maybe not recycle, but possibly downcycle them that will still mitigate that environmental impact. I think the key here is always going to be pre planning those end of life pathways before the production begins. I don't know how many times I'll say this, but sustainability should not be seen as an afterthought. You should be thinking about these things before the project begins. It shouldn't be okay. We have all the designs ready, we have everything good to go. How do we make it sustainable now?
Right.
Sustainability needs to be one of the first things that you're thinking about. And again, metrics.
Mhm.
Reducing our production through accurate forecasting and data is going to be really important. But in order to do that, you need to be tracking your input, you need to be tracking materials. So I think sustainability in printing is more about shifting from a temporary and disposable mindset to a temporary but responsibly managed mindset.
You had mentioned sustainability as sort of a continuous improvement practice, and I really like the idea of framing it that way. Much of it is really about doing the best possible at the present time and understanding that what the best possible is may change in definition over time versus reaching like a lofty goal. And you mentioned these things earlier, like being zero carbon or net zero or all this kind of stuff. Is there like a happy medium there for most of the industry who is seeking to become, quote, sustainable or more sustainable?
Absolutely. So I don't want to say net zero, carbon zero are buzzwords because they are important goals that we should be striving for. But these are very, very long term goals that are going to take very comprehensive programs and investments in order to reach. And they should be considered, it should be a goal. But I think it's more important for printers and print service providers to focus on what they can do right now and what small continuous improvements they can make now to eventually take on more hefty goals like net zero, like carbon neutrals. I think sometimes people get bogged down when thinking of sustainability because I think sometimes humans can be focused on like the short term returns and we want that instant gratification and we want to be super sustainable right away.
Hmm.
But it's more about just embracing the journey, embracing the challenges, doing things little by little. You know, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So it's really starting small, like by being, recyclable outputs for your materials, like taking sustainability into consideration when you're replacing equipment. You don't have to go out and buy the nicest, newest, most energy efficient press, but
Hmm.
when it's time to replace maybe an old press, take energy efficiency into consideration. Or maybe your business is expanding, your business is growing, and you're ready to add new equipment. Think about these sustainable attributes when making the purchase. So it's not about, doing everything at once because it's going to get too complicated. You're going to get overwhelmed and then
Hmm.
you're going to put sustainability off to the side because it just seems like this big green monster that you don't know how to tackle. So it's more about looking at your business, looking at it through your business lens, because sustainability is also not something we talked about standardization, but there is no standard sustainability model for anybody.
Hmm.
It really is about who your stakeholders are, what products you're producing, and really looking at it from your business lens and what makes most sense to your business at that time. And like you said, that can change in the future. Sustainability is very much something that fluctuates year to year, day to day, honestly. But it really is just focusing on that low hanging fruit and then going from there.
Printing United Alliance is the leading member-based printing and graphic arts association in North America with over 70 years of history and more than 20,000 members worldwide. We're here to support printing professionals like you with the tools, resources, and information you need to grow your business, sharpen your skills, and expand your network. Whether you're a printer, supplier, student, or educator, we've built our community to serve everyone who's passionate about the future of print. An Alliance membership is a smart, cost-effective way to stay current on the latest trends, connect with industry leaders, and give your business the competitive edge it deserves. Head over to printing.org/membership to learn more about the memberships we offer. Let's move the printing industry forward together.
Yeah, your example of the eating an elephant reminded me of another example, which is the idea of, let's say I decide today I'm going to get healthy. So
Mhm.
starting today, I'm going to eat better. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to do all those right things. And I can tell you within a day or two, I'll be exhausted as my efforts
Exactly.
will be done. So take it a chunk at a time. Do it right. And it's going to take some time. And it's also going to take a lot of effort.
Absolutely. I really like the example that you gave because I think building healthy habits is actually something that I've been working on and it has been an incremental change. Like
Yeah.
build this healthy habit. Once that sticks, you add another one. Once that sticks, you add another one. And little by little, you're going to get to the point that you want to be at.
Yeah. So when you speak to business owners about sustainability, let's say you're at Pretty United Expo and you're in the booth there talking to people, what are a couple preconceived notions you run into about sustainability that you often need to correct?
Yeah. So I think there's two big ones, and I'll tack on a third that I mentioned earlier. The first one is sustainability is expensive and sustainability costs more, and it's just kind of like a money pit. And sustainability done wrong, sure, can be because you are not taking it those little chunks at a time. But sustainability implemented in a way that benefits your business is actually going to lead to cost savings because If you are reducing waste, then you don't have to pay to haul so much waste out. If you're reducing energy, you're going to have lower bills. When it comes to metrics, an example that I like to give to people a lot is there was this company that we were working with, and 1 year or 1 month, their utility bill spiked astronomically. And the only reason why they were able to figure out why that happened is because they were tracking their water usage, and they realized there's no difference in our water usage. And it turned out that the utility company overcharged them. Like, it was a mistake on their end.
Yeah.
They would have never caught that if accounts payable was just simply paying bills. But because they're tracking these things, they were able to catch that. And that was a huge money saver. And I also think that when you're thinking about sustainability as being expensive, I like to compare sustainability as just any other smart business investment that you're going to make. Investments are going to cost money. Sometimes takes time to see a return on that investment, but you just have to be patient and you will see the benefits of sustainability. Sustainability is innovative. Innovation is a part of business. And I think the companies that embrace this innovation and see it through a lens of opportunity are going to be much better off.
Another thing that comes to mind is another example of that sort of investment is companies who invest in effective training for their employees, whether it's in production or it's in safety. It will come back to you through improvement of the business, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, thinking about the generations that are coming into the workforce, they want to work for a company that they feel is doing something good. So talking about your sustainability journey with your employees is going to be beneficial for employee retainment. But then also talking about training, you should train your sales teams and your customer facing employees on your sustainability so that they can talk about these things with confidence to your customers and sell sustainability. Sustainability should not be an add-on. It should be a business value that you bring to the table from the beginning. The second preconceived notion that I think a lot of business owners have is that customers don't care about sustainability anymore. And I would say that is a really big assumption or a really wrong assumption to be making, because we're seeing a lot of companies walking back on sustainability or walking back from commitments. And they're walking back from commitments because they made these astronomical goals. They tried to eat that elephant in one bite. They made these astronomical goals that were really difficult to reach. They said, we're going to be net zero and we're going to be super sustainable. And then when the clock is ticking, it's actually really, really hard to get there. But that does not mean that they don't care about sustainability. They're just they're talking about it a lot less. That also has to do, I think, with a little bit with the political climate. Sustainability is something that is incredibly politicized. And they instead of getting the backlash that some companies have gotten for these commitments that they've made, there's been lawsuits, there's consumer backlash. So they would rather not put themselves out there and talk about it less. But when they're making business decisions, it is still front of mind.
Now, going back, it seems that even 5 years ago, sustainability was more of a voluntary thing that was done either by companies who valued a strong environmental commitment or who undertook the quest to reach certain customers. But increasingly, with things like ERP, we're seeing sustainability practices being mandated, particularly now in the States, here in the US. So what can wide format producers and other PSPs do today to prepare for those mandates to come their direction if they haven't already? And do you see ERP sticking around for the long term?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Extended producer responsibility is something that, number one, I'll start out by saying already exists for a lot of different products. So there is EPR for mattresses, there is EPR for batteries, there's EPR programs for paint. So EPR programs are not new. They're just newer to our industry. There's definitely a big push right now for packaging EPR. We have 7 states that have passed it. And that is definitely making the jump to textiles. So I do think EPR is here to stay. Textile EPR was already passed in California. This year, it was introduced in Washington and New York. It did not pass in Washington. We doubt that it'll pass in New York, but we see the momentum. So I personally do think that EPR is here to stay and it's not going to go anywhere. I think what we'll see, and I know we're talking wide format, but just kind of to give a background on the packaging, because so many states have passed packaging EPR, they are now pushing for like a federal harmonized legislation that will probably take a little bit, but the momentum for that is growing. I think textile EPR will eventually go down that same route. How can wide format printers start preparing? Map your material flows. What comes in, what comes out, what are your substrates? We don't know what a card product list would look like for this type of EPR, but mapping your material flows and your substrates, the type, the volume, is a good place to start. Again, metrics,
Mm-hmm.
build relationships with recyclers now if you can, because a big thing with EPR is the more recyclable your product is, the lower your fees are going to be. So finding those end of life solutions for materials is going to be huge when it comes to EPR, and educate your teams in our case, and work with the alliance to educate legislators on what a potential EPR program would look like. I think we're pretty far away from an all-encompassing EPR program that would cover the wide format sector. I think right now it's going to be more focused on textiles,
Sure.
but I think it's something to definitely keep a lookout for and start preparing, because at the end of the day, the things that you would do to prepare for EPR would be part of a very nice comprehensive sustainability program regardless.
Even that exercise of understanding where you are now, what your inputs are now, what your waste streams are now, is the only way you can chart a path to the future that then makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Last question I have is, can you give me a couple examples of wide format printing companies that have made sustainability commitments and have, as a result, seen benefits that made them stronger, made them more profitable? And what do you think is the secret sauce that made those efforts successful while other companies have kind of struggled?
I am kind of blanking on specific companies,
Mhm.
but I will tell you, I think what the common benefits are from embracing sustainability. Brands are focused on sustainability, especially big brands. They know that it is something that they're going to have to embrace, not just because the consumers want it. It is smart business. Climate change is real. The plastic pollution crisis is real. Brands realize this. It is material to their business. So they care about sustainability. Reduced material waste through better estimating and netting is going to reduce your costs. If you have to ship less waste, it's going to be more, you're going to have more cost efficiency in your business. And this is a really good add-on, but I think it's important thinking about the issues right now with employee retention is your employees want to work for a company that they feel is making a difference.
Mhm.
That is something that I can attest to personally. Sustainability is important to me, and working for a company that takes sustainability serious, I know is important to me and is important to many other people in the same position as me. I think the secret sauce has four main ingredients. The first one is going to be leadership buy-in. Sustainability has to be embedded from the top. It cannot be marketing driven. If you're just making all these goals and all these promises and you can't back them up, not only is it going to look bad, but you can end up in legal trouble. Number two, again, metrics, metrics, metrics. Measurement and transparency is so important. What gets measured gets improved. It builds a standard baseline and you go from there.
Mhm.
Integrated with profitability. Successful companies align sustainability with efficiency and client value. It is not an add on, it is not a separate initiative. It is something that you consider from the start. And the last one is going to be client collaboration. So involve the clients early, but be a resource to them. Educate them. You are the expert in printing. You are the printing expert. You know your product. You know your process. You know your substrate. Be a resource to them. Brands don't want a yes man. Brands don't want someone that's going to say yes to every crazy idea that they have.
Sure.
They want someone that is going to bring valuable, interesting, and really good ideas to the table that are going to make a difference in their decision making process.
If I can offer just one maybe seasoning to add to your recipe, there is culture, building sustainability into the broader company, whether it's internal facing to your employees or externally. Our corporate culture includes this, and as you say, it's not an add-on, right?
Absolutely. I mean, even looking at sustainability from the people aspect, it's not just about donating to charity and doing good for your community. It's about protecting your employees, making sure it's a safe environment. And tout that to your employees. We are sustainable and we care about you. We want you to be safe. We want you to practice safe work practices. So really show your employees that it's not just sustainability isn't even just about the environment. It's also about them and making sure that they have a safe, good, comfortable work environment. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, Sarah Osorio, thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you, Dan. It was a pleasure.
You've been listening to the Wide Format Impressions broadcast. You can find more great content at wideformatimpressions.com.